destination coming out in a couple weeks, so that gets the gears running a little bit. I see your head shaking a little bit. I see it. I see the nod. I appreciate the confirmation on that. But for today, we're going to be talking about men's wellness. Men's wellness, and this is a very important topic. And when we speak about men's wellness, first and foremost, what makes a man? All right, so for all of y'all, please, shield your eyes. You're about to see perhaps, maybe the most gorgeous man alive. That's what some people say. Eat yourself. So when a lot of people ask, what makes a real man? A lot of times it comes to provider, intelligent, a winner, self-sufficient, handsome, money, protector, etc., etc. And I am quite confident that many of the men I see in here, if not have all of those qualities, we darn sure have many of those in itself. But that's not what we're here for. Even though a lot of us men possess these awesome qualities, there's also concerns that are run rampant in our XY chromosome. What's really happening to a lot of us men? Trigger warning, we won't stay on this for too long, but there are some serious concerns that are happening with us men. It's sad to share, but it's the truth. 80% of completed suicides are men. 78% of homicide victims are men. 60% of the homeless population are men. 93% prison inmate population are men. 70% of those who participated in the survey represented men for addiction. I'll let that sit for a second, because we'll get to it. While we're groomed as to men are strong, men are self-sufficient, men are independent, you see all of these examples that strip us of that power, that are exact moments of fragility, weakness, hitting your bottom. And the next slide is not necessarily the cause of all of this, but more so the onion theory, as what are some of the beneath iceberg things that perhaps put us as at risk to experiencing these troublesome fates. Social constructs. If not familiar, that's what I'm here for. Social constructs are more so norms, rules, expectations that a lot of times are overtly given to us or microly given to us. And I'm just going to start from the top, and I'm just interested, don't worry, I won't put pressure on any one of you all, but if any of these phrases kind of sound familiar, I'll definitely look out for a head nod or even a hand raise. Big boys don't cry. Suck it up. Would you cry? Boy, man it up. If you're not first, you're last. Shake and bake, Rick Bobby. Never let them see you sweat. Next man up. They seem so innocent. My apologies, but I'll say like how those are red zones. First and foremost, big boys don't cry. We're human. We're not the Terminator. We're not metal underneath. We have feelings. And by inherently telling us to fight against a normal experience, it implants you to become a stranger to your emotions. And the more you become a stranger to your emotions, how can it be a smooth transition of getting to know the world when the world may not even understand a true, genuine understanding of who you are? If you're not first, you're last. It's an innate lesson of almost programming young boys that fellow boys are their competition. They're not their peers. They're not someone that you can reach out to and say, hey man, I'm struggling. because by doing so, it comes with the fear of being weak, less of a man. And just further, just keep it mum. And you get the appearance that you're strong, but you continue to wither within. Never let them see you sweat. It's a common derivative as well. And it's like also just loneliness. Sure, you can stick your chest out, be around the right crowd, but you still feel alone due to not feeling comfortable letting others know what's really going on. Next man up. Be a provider. You're only worth what you give. Now this is very common too. The underlying is that you're only worth what you provide. And that gives off the essence that you are expendable. That gives off the essence that if you don't step up, make the money that you need to do, be as successful as you need to be, you're liable to being replaced. Does that sound like you're raising a human or raising a machine? Machine. So what is a possible risk is what can lead up to all of these seeds, the onion there. A lot of times we see what we see, but we miss out on these rooted issues. And a lot of times, oh, look at that rain. A lot of times, it breeds up the risk of the two acceptable emotions, but are also quite toxic: aggression and suppression. Because by beating your fellow man, competition, yes, I'm a man, I'm aggressive, anger, that's what I'm supposed to do. Suppression, you better keep that to yourself. Teapot theory, though, and you see how these are well connected, and even within the youth. As shared, I have a history of working in incarceration for fellow men that are behind bars, working with men out in the public. And a common thing that I've worked with many of the men is how a lot of them are conditioned to keep their emotions to themselves, even when at home, even with their parents. A lot of men are groomed of, I don't want to be a bother to my parents. A lot of men are groomed of, oh, when I suck it up, I get rewarded, I get praised. And a key example is, I won't get too scientific, I'll be very general. It's a hormone called oxytocin, the love hormone. Touch, physical touch. Each and every one of us, more than likely, were acquainted with experiencing that emotion or that hormone when we were babies. Because we were hopefully just held. But for some reason, there's a change within the social norms when a boy gets older in comparison to traditional girls when they get older. For some reason, there's plenty of studies, boys become touched less and less. So inherently, what do you say that happens when inherently within society, girls get hugs, kisses, oh, you failed, let me help you up. For a boy, get off me. Boy, you fought, get up, man up, stop crying. No touching. Gradually conditions men to not only get that oxytocin, not only get that love of touch, but only get furthermore confirmation you're alone. And with that loneliness, that's another reason how suppression and aggression gets tied together. Because out of all of these moments, I'm not feeling comfortable, not knowing how to experience and have that experience. It builds up. It builds up. It builds up. And how does a lot of those unexperienced emotions tend to get expressed? Through anger. Oh, but he's just being a boy. No. He's being a human. And those are the side effects. A lot of times when we have those last showers, it's a flood of a whole bunch of suppressed moments that we may have not known how to allow ourselves to feel. How can we feel? How can us men know how to feel? As I shared, through our upbringing, it's like a hard shell. But underneath that hard shell, it's so vulnerable. Nothing's connected. But we're human. We need to find some way of connecting. This pain, with this disconnect with ourselves, is painful. We're almost aliens within our own body. That runs the risk as to how a lot of us may turn to unhealthy void fillers. Unhealthy void fillers such as drug abuse, addiction. It manipulates the dopamine, manipulates that pleasant feeling. For that moment, sure, it may be worth it, but in the long picture, furthermore, not only teaches ourselves that we can't be ourselves, and further runs the risk of what can happen from continuing to center our lives through manipulating our emotions through drugs and addiction. Porn addiction, sex addiction. You remember I spoke about oxytocin, right? And a lot of men, due to the lack of touch, have been programmed with the feelings that we're not worth being touched unless sex is happening. And I could run the risk of very unhealthy sexual relationships occurring from that. Gambling, that's more so, I call it a behavioral addiction. We call it process addiction. Behavioral addictions have the same chemical properties of the peaks and valleys within the brain. Unhealthy work boundaries. You remember that one saying, your next man up. This is an example of how unhealthy work boundaries can happen, of being so pressured of kicking butt, excelling, getting a promotion, burnout, doing what you can do so you're not seen as expendable. But you keep putting yourself on the back burner, you're going to burn out. Codependent relationships. I'm only good for people that surround me. I'm only worth if I'm loved. Enabling codependent relationships of doing so much for people that's near you that you put yourself on the back burner, you're not even realizing that you're turning yourself into a resource. And prioritizing yourself of being a giver, you may not even allow yourself to be mindful if the people that surround you are the people that need to be around you, because you get run the trap of being so stuck on making them happy and your worth being determined on their happiness. And gaming and internet addiction. It's a form of connection, but it also is a drastic, watered down form of, like, you see how I'm here with you. You see my nonverbals. You see everyone's nonverbals. 3/4 of communication depends on nonverbals. So it's important to be mindful of having those in-person conversations, as well as with the internet and gaming. We won't get too scientific, but even those lightings have prompts within our brains just to keep us focused in there, to keep us lost in there, and have us be mindless. When we get from mindless to mindful, you'll have a little bit more understanding on the next slide. So, I mentioned my man right there. I mentioned Final Destination. It's all right if you don't know what these steps are. Does this step look familiar? Ooh. Yes! Oh my God! I love it. As I said, I am a horror fan, horror freak. So I had to find a nice PC picture. I didn't want that to upset people. But yes, this is a classic scene, a classic setting of The Exorcist. It's all going to connect. I won't get too deep. I'm not even going to explain the scene, but I'll just say I won't even explain the scene, but it's a landmark scene for The Exorcist. Why am I bringing up The Exorcist? All right. So, believe it or not, if you're not a fan of scary movies, I understand, but there's different genres In the possession genre, there is one key thing that needs to happen in the possession genre to give someone the best chance of overcoming the demon or the demons. One more pop quiz. Is anyone aware of the one important thing that needs to be known in order to increase your chances of surviving that? So in the possession genre, what's one important thing that you need to know in order to help your chances of maybe surviving or beating the demon? Close. The important thing is you need to know the demon's name. You can't beat or overcome what you don't know what you're facing. So maybe that connects to what we're talking about. Emotions. Name and claim your emotions. And man, it's easier said than done, but it's a very important step. Emotions are not meant to be fixed. They're meant to be experienced. Now, once the dust settles, it may give us the opportunity to be aware as to what may need to be addressed. But rushing to try to fix things when you're emotional runs the risk of creating even more damage. So name your emotion. Find ways of knowing what in the world you're feeling. Because not only knowing what you're feeling can be empowering, it can also allow yourself to be aware as to how to move. Because if I know I'm at maybe 70%, what sense does it make of trying to push myself to move at 100% if I'm at 70%? That runs the risk of being resentful to myself, hateful to myself, attacking myself, being critical instead of graceful and understanding. So that's the reason it's important to be mindful of naming what you feel. How can we do that? Ways to feel. There's many and there's a plethora. There's so many, I just picked a few. But there's a plethora of ways of allowing yourself to feel your emotions. Now, heads up, these are not things to feel better. These are not things to fight your emotions. These are things to be done to be one with your emotions. Be mindful of what you can do when you're feeling low. Do when you're nervous. Do when you're bored. Not to get rid of the emotion, but to normalize, hey, even though I don't like what I feel, I can still do some things that are productive with this feeling. So examples, exercise, biking, yoga, weights, cooking your favorite meal, try a new recipe, listen to music, podcast, journal, puzzle, batting cage, bowling, making some homemade stress balls. I haven't done that in a while. Walk, groom, wash your pet. I have a cat that needs their claws trimmed. I'm fearful of those scratches. I need to let myself experience that. Hey, even I'm dealing with some avoidance myself. But keywords, mindfulness, things that you can do while you're feeling. And here, if you believe it or not, this is like a representation of a human body. So a lot of us, kind of going back into the theme of you're only worth what you put out, it runs the risk of, this helps us to remind ourselves that we are more than just one vector in our lives. It is very easy for us men sometimes to mentally put all of ourselves in our career, our family, our relationships, our money. And when those areas may not meet our expectations, we run the risk of throwing away all of ourselves. We run the risk of overlooking the other areas within our lives that actually are pretty stable. And this helps to be mindful. This is called the wellness wheel, by the way. You can definitely Google it, print it, and fill it out yourselves. So these all have sections that you can write within the areas as to what can it look like to actually fulfill this? So with family night, weekly movie nights, try to tell your family that you love them a few times, maybe a few times a month, a few times a week, however you like it, and just going through checking it. And so when areas may be struggling, perhaps after you allow yourself to feel, you allow yourself to evaluate, assess. Because allowing yourself to feel without assessment, that's avoidance. Because without completing that cycle, you run the risk of not allowing yourself to have that conversation as to what perhaps is influencing me to feel the way I feel. So it's all together. Knowing what you feel, allowing yourself to feel, and when you're regulated, process with yourself. What's going on with myself? What needs attention? What can I do about it? Do I need to let it go? What things can I improve my focus on in order to help myself to let it go? And as I kind of finish to wrap up, this is more so I didn't put my name up there because maybe I heard it from somewhere else, but I don't know where I heard it from. But this is something that I always tell many of my male patients. Be a resourceful person, not a resource. Resources get used and replaced. There is only one you. Thank you.